next guest was in the corner of Merab Dvalishvili as he got another impressive victory this past weekend at UFC 316, submitting Sean O'Malley. It is Big John Wood back here on the program. John, how you doing, man?
Great, man. Couldn't be better. Obviously, it was a very, very good weekend for us. So I'm still buzzing on that one.
Yeah, you had to be. I mean, what a performance that was. By the way, apologies for the voice. Little raspy. Did some coaching over the weekend for my son, but you were as well.
Me too.
Yeah, I was going to say
too.
you have a similar thing here. Although you were in a world title fight, which is much more impressive. But before we talk about the fight, which was very amazing, I know you're actually heading off to Georgia in a few hours. Tell me about that trip you got coming up here.
Yeah, it was something we planned before. I've been trying to get out there for a while. Merab, has such a massive fan base out there, and the Georgian fans and people are always so great to me. And like every Georgian I meet here, they're like honestly like the best people. And all the fighters that I have at the gym, all the Georgians, like it really has like just helped change the culture of the gym. It's been so good. They're such good people and loyal people, and so I've been wanting to get over there. And he's asked me a few times, and it just hasn't worked out. So we planned this before you know, before the fight of, going over. He's obviously going to do a little victory tour. And so I flew back home for 2 days to see my wife and kid and go into the gym for a day. And now I got to fly straight back tonight on a red eye to meet him in New York, to fly over to Georgia. And then from Georgia, spend a couple days there and then go over to Azerbaijan for Nazim Sadikov and Khalil Roundtree.
From a coaching perspective, did that fight play out how you thought it would play out? Did Merab follow the game plan going in? Because it certainly looked like it.
It played out exactly like we did. I mean, everybody, I got a lot of shit for saying that, going on record and saying that with all these rematches, we're going back with a purpose to finish,
Mhm.
and that Merab has the capability to finish. The thing that people don't realize about Merab is I've said this time and time again. He's still green in the sport. He's still green in MMA. He's very good in aspects, but he's learning how to become an MMA fighter at a world championship level. And those availabilities of the submissions and those things, they're there all the time. Merab breaks people. When you can break somebody and do what he does, there's a point in time in every fight we've had for the last 5 fights, there's a point in time where the fighter in the fight, whether they knew it or didn't know it, they go, I don't want to be here anymore. Here's my neck. I don't want to be here anymore. Here's my arm. There's just things where they make mistakes or you force people to do stupid things. And Merab hasn't been taking advantage of that or seeing that. And all we've been really working for the last year is now, listen, when that point in time starts to happen, you've got to go for it. You've got to see, you've got to take that neck. And if you don't get it, that's okay. If the person defends, that's fine, but you're leaving a lot of meat on the bone in these fights. And now we're not. Now, I'm telling you, you're going to see a whole different, crazier, more violent Merab. You're going to see somebody who's hitting harder. You're going to see somebody, and mark my words now, I'll say this now. You're going to see Merab knock somebody out eventually here. I don't know who or when, but you will see that in the future. He's just getting better everywhere. So really the game plan was exactly the same as before, is just changing up some rhythms, pressing. We wanted to see what O'Malley was going to do when he came out. There wasn't really, I didn't buy into the hype of, the whole I've cleaned up my life and I'm doing these things and I'm doing, and good for him, really good for him. I'm glad you're doing what you should be doing the entire time at that level. I'm glad you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And that's the thing, whereas like I didn't buy into any of it because Merab does that every day. That's Merab. Merab's life is lived like a champion, is training like a champion every day in and day out, no matter if something's on the books or not. So I didn't think there was going to be some kind of crazy thing where, there was like, oh my God, you've figured us out and done this, because Merab is a very hard person to figure out. You switch it up on him and he'll switch it up on you. So we had game plans for if, O'Malley came out and was trying to push the pace and just knock us out, great. Or we had game plans for O'Malley's going to run and try to point fight us.
Mhm.
And it all kind of just worked out perfectly. And Merab followed the game plan. And, he even stated it's kind of just like playing a video game with a controller. You just kind of set it up for him and kind of guide him, and he goes out there and does everything. And it couldn't have gone any better for us. It was a perfect game plan, that he executed. It was awesome.
Yeah, it certainly looked like that. So Sean O'Malley's first submission loss, I think Merab's first submission win in the UFC as well, was the method of victory submission. You said you had a lot of different game plans, but was that the way you were leaning, or if you wanted to finish, was it going to be knockout?
No, the main one, I'd be a liar and a fool to sit here and say, "Oh, we're gonna go out and knock out O'Malley."
Mm,
That's a stupid, game plan to go with.
right.
Is it possible? Yeah. I mean, you saw he landed the bigger shots and actually I
Yeah.
think clipped Sean and wobbled him a couple times. So I think if it stays on the feet, that's a very good possibility. But that
Mm,
was not number one going into that,
mm,
scenario of like, hey, let's go out and knock out Sean and prove a point. We're not out there to try to beat people at their own game,
mhm,
and step into the fire to prove a point. We don't need to do that. We're going to beat people at Merab's game. Merab's game is, and now that game is that toolbox is opening and getting bigger with more and more tools as we speak. So the whole game plan was always take him down, and look for that neck. That
yeah.
neck is going to be there. Now that submission that he hit, that the machine choke, that is something that he does on his own in practice. And again, I'd be a liar if I sat here and said that was something we worked on.
Yeah.
I've seen him hit it. I've seen him hit it in practice, a lot. The thing, and he even said at the press conference, we're training with the puffy gloves, we're training with the bigger gloves. So a lot of times when he's attacking submissions, it's harder and he gets a little frustrated with those gloves on. There's days where we take those gloves off and he goes and does his thing. But a lot of it was just about getting there, getting to those positions, attacking the neck when you see it, attacking those positions, going for it. Don't let them just sit there for free because they think you're not going to do anything. Make them have to defend, because even if we don't get the submission, now they're defending and worried about, oh my God, this guy's on me like this. And that opens up our ground and pound even that much more, So just working on the spots of Rob's ground game is phenomenal. Like,
Mm,
people don't understand. His jiu-jitsu is great, his wrestling's great, his top game, everything. Obviously, his bottom game is good.
mhm.
So it's just about opening those doors to say, hey, here it is, go for it. So the whole game plan was, like I said, to beat him up on the feet as much as we could, take him down, finish him.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to be clear, I didn't think like one punch knockout. I thought maybe like a TKO finish, you get him on top or whatever.
I
But
thought that
certainly,
was a
yeah.
possibility. I thought that was definitely a possibility too.
Okay, cool.
I
Yeah,
really did.
making sure. Was the toe thing a concern at all? Obviously, going in, we saw him post the photo. Was that ever a thing, or are you just like, nah, it's Merab, he'll figure it out?
Not even in the slightest bit, man.
Yeah,
I went out of town for one day.
yeah.
That happens
Of
6 hours after I
course, it's when
leave.
you go out of town. Yeah,
I find out from social media.
yeah.
By the time I got back, like 2 days later, it wasn't even a mention. It
Mhm.
wasn't even a mention. There was never one talk about that toe in camp.
Mhm.
It was such a ridiculous thing. And I tell you guys, like, listen, if he's talking about it, it ain't anything. It's
Right.
nothing. He's never going to talk. There's injuries. There's plenty of injuries we've had, plenty, where we're like, oh shit, this might take us out of this fight.
Mhm.
We ain't talking about that on TV, or on social media and these things. So it was never even a question. Where, as opposed to like the Umar camp, man, there was three or four things there where I was like, we need
Yeah.
to, let's keep that under wraps. And like, I've said time and time again, I really thought about pulling him out of that fight.
Right.
But this one, no concerns. It was a happy, healthy fight. Probably one of the best camps, probably the best camp we've had as far as just leveling up. The violence that he brought, like, it was rough on me. I mean, I broke my wrist again on him. Like, he was rearranging my ribs every single day. Those body shots just tearing me apart. Like, it was a great camp. I mean, it wasn't great for us and the training partners, but it was great for him.
Now, as far as the next opponent, I know you guys don't choose that. That's more the UFC. But is it going to be Corey Sandhagen? Do you think? Who do you think will be next for your next title defense?
All signs lean to yes.
Mm,
Marab is very accepting of that opponent. He respects Corey. He thinks Corey's done what he needs to do. It's a new opponent. It's a fresh face. I don't see why it wouldn't. I don't think there's anybody else. I mean, Dana mentioned Umar, but Umar has never been a champion. Umar needs to go out and win a fight or two to even
yeah.
come back close to that before we accept that fight. And I think the ball is now in Rob's court to be able to say, let's hold off on that guy. Go get a couple wins. Obviously, Merab, he really is a company guy now, and he will do whatever they tell him to do because he doesn't care. He'll fight whoever. He's not afraid of anybody. But Sandhagen definitely makes the most sense right now. It's a new person to kind of, you know, get the blood pumping and rushing. To have to go out there and fight a new guy and figure him out. So I think it's looking towards like that it's going to be Sandhagen for sure.
And I'm assuming no conversations about a Petr Yan rematch, only because that fight that was rumored with Marcus McGee, I don't think is signed yet. So I guess he could technically be a possibility, but I'm probably thinking not likely next for Merab.
Yeah, I mean, we would love to fight Peter. You know, Petr Yan is a great fighter, and I think he's very well deserving. In
Mm.
fact, you know, if it was up to me, I'd say Sandhagen and Yan should fight for the number one contender, and that's our guy. But those are two fights that, you know, obviously the UFC's kind of running out of bantamweights to throw at us. So I think that those are two guys that we could arguably fight back to back with no, you know, no problem. So I don't know if they want to risk anybody getting a loss there. You know, Sandhagen was at the event. Sandhagen was backstage. You know, it seems like it's being primed for, you know, a Sandhagen, and he's doing the right things. He's putting himself in the position to get Merab talk about him. You know, so I really can't see it going any other way.
A lot of people are talking about how Merab is the greatest of all time at bantamweight, and he's made a strong argument if you look at the resume, who he's beat, and everything like that. And you know, when you start getting into that talk, people start talking about a second belt with Ilya Taporia moving up to 55. Is there a possibility? Not now, obviously. We mentioned a number of fights from Merab going forward. Do you ever see Merab going to 145 at all?
Not as a permanent move.
Mm.
That's not even a question in a talk that we've had. Marab's not a giant guy. He's, you
Yeah,
know, he's built, he's solid, but like those some of those 45ers are massive, dude.
yeah,
You know, so I really think that for me, I'd like to see him stay at bantamweight, secure his, you know, GOAT, Hall of Fame, legend status, whatever you want to call pound for pound, and just own that division for as long as humanly possible with the potential of super fights. You know,
yeah.
like I think you've got super fights, and we're getting close to that conversation where, you know, I think after Sandhagen and after we beat Sandhagen, I really think that conversation starts to heat up a lot as far as, okay, do you go up and do you fight, you know, 45? Does Pantoja or whoever has that belt come up and fight us? You
Good
know,
point. Yeah.
you're looking at super fight status things, and that's always a good problem to have. But I personally, we've never had that talk. I don't like it. I wouldn't be opposed to it if that's something that he wanted to do. Obviously, it's his career and he
Mhm.
makes that final decision. But I don't think we're ready to have those talks yet.
Yeah, and I think there's too many good fights at 35 still that need, that you
Yeah.
want to see Sandhagen, a lot the potential, rematches as well. That would be interesting too. On that same note, I know it's not your choice, obviously, because you're not part of his camp. But do you think Sean O'Malley should go to 145? Only because he's now lost twice to the champ. I really don't know where he goes from here.
Man, it really depends on what Sean's, you know, what his goals are in fighting.
Mm,
And, you know, obviously being a former champ, it's hard to not want to chase that again. But it is a little further out of reach right now. But here's the thing, you and I both know the UFC does not care about rankings, numbers of
yeah,
who this, who's that. It really comes off. I mean, Sean is honestly potentially one or two good knockouts from his name being thrown back into the mix.
yeah.
Now, do I think they throw him back at Merab? I don't think that would be a smart thing, but there's some point in time, like if he wants to fight himself into that position again, that's always possible when you have that kind of star power and that kind of draw. I mean, people will forget about this. If Sean goes out and knocks out whoever he fights next, he goes out and starches somebody, everybody's going to be, oh my god, he's back, he's this, he's that, you know,
Mm,
they're going to be right back on the sugar train, you know,
mm,
like, and rightfully so. The guy's built himself into a star. So you never know what happens. But 145, like I said, there's some gnarly dudes up there, you know,
yeah.
and Sean's a tall guy, but he ain't got a big frame, you
Mhm.
know, so it would be really tough to see that going well right now. But I mean, I think he just needs to fight no matter what. I think he just needs to fight, get back in there, win, you know, prove that he is on that level of being a championship. You know, there's a lot of people that don't believe that, you know, he earned the title fight. And there's some things, you know, obviously with the Aljo fight, whether that was a lucky shot or not, I don't believe too much in the lucky shots. But you know, the Petr Yan fight, I'll still say here, I don't think he beat Peter even. I don't
Mhm.
even, I don't know who would give that to Sean on that one, but he just needs to come back, get a couple solid wins. There's some really good fights for him at 35. He
Yeah,
hasn't fought that many of the top 35ers. He really
yeah,
hasn't.
yeah. That's true.
He's fought like two of the top guys at 35. So go back to 35 while you're figuring it out. get a couple wins, dude, and it's really it's really not that hard of a path to see him potentially getting his name mentioned again.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think there's one big fight they have to do at this point. I want to hear your opinion on this. They got to do O'Malley and Henry Cejudo. That's too big of a fight not to make right now, I don't think.
I think that's a good fight for both of them.
Yeah.
I think that's a great fight for Cejudo and O'Malley. I
Yeah.
think it's I don't know who takes that one. It's obviously a really good fight for Sean based upon reach, based upon length and style.
Mm.
I'm sure Henry believes he can go out there and wrestle him and smother him. Based upon what he's seen Merab do, I don't know that that's going to be the possibility, but I think that's a great fight. I think that's actually a very, very smart fight to make. It's a win-win for the UFC. So I like that matchup a lot. I don't think you throw Sean back in there with Umar or somebody like that.
No.
Let him get some confidence back. Let him have some good fights and good wins. And Sean's a good dude, and Tim's a good dude. I really like Tim, and I think he's going to be, he's a really good coach. He's young in his coaching career. He's still a young guy, man. He's going to be a great coach, and he's I shouldn't say he's going to be. He's a great coach now. He just has to spend more time, and they can figure it out together. And like I said, I think that you put a couple of matches together like Cejudo and some other people, and there's a path there. But I like that fight a lot.
Did you get a chance to see Patchy Mix's debut against Mario Batista? I know you were focused obviously on the main event.
I did.
Yeah.
There was a lot of hype coming in there, and done multiple interviews, and I might even said it with you.
Yeah.
I never thought that was an easy fight. I
Mm.
never thought that was an easy fight for Patchy. And uh, uh, Mario is, dude, he's a motherfucker. Like that
Mm.
guy, I've had to corner against him a couple times, and he's tricky. He's really, really good at making people look bad. He knows how to keep his distance. He knows how to keep his timing. He comes from great, Jim from the MMA lab, John Crouch and Randy Stanky. Those guys are like, they're really good coaches. They're really good at what they do, and they know how to game plan against high level guys. So I never thought that was an easy out. And coming in and fighting somebody in the top 10 of the UFC on that kind of show and atmosphere, that was top three loudest arenas I've ever been in. I
Mm.
couldn't even, I lost my voice after the first round trying to yell so loud. It was crazy. It was electric in there. So that is a big place. We're not talking about walking into the Apex or walking into a smaller fight night where you can kind of get your feet, a little bit, dip your feet into the pool and get a little wet before you got to, dive head first. And that was a head first dive into a massive show, and he did take it on. He did take it on 3 weeks notice, but I mean, you can't really use that excuse for the fact that you came out very, very sure of yourself, and rightfully so. He is a champion in other organizations, but like he was pretty cocky about everything and stating that he's the rightful owner of the division and going to jump up and take the belt and do this and do that. And like again, I like Patchy a lot. I think he's a good dude and a great fighter, but there are levels to this, and that was shown.
Let's talk some hockey. Should the Vegas Golden Knights go after Mitch Marner, do you think?
I would say yes.
Yeah.
I think we need to add a couple big pieces. The crazy thing with the Knights is like we have such a good team, but like it's almost too much of a team. We need, Jack Eichel is one of the best, arguably best players in the NHL. But he's become a team player. We need that dude scoring 40, 50 goals.
Yeah.
We need a good goal scorer. We need a good defenseman, the guys that can get out there and be a little selfish and rip that puck into the net.
Mm.
So I think we need a big, addition this year just to kind of get that pushing. We almost, like I said, we have a great team dynamic, but I'd like to see somebody going out there and smashing some goals.
Yeah, and I think it makes sense for Marner because he was in this huge bubble in Toronto where everything he did from, going to get dinner or something would be under the microscope. In Vegas, he's not going to have that, and he gets this awesome team to be a part of. And I think he'll probably play better, to be honest. He's great in the regular season. I think even in the playoffs, he could definitely elevate his game with the Knights because I think that's interesting. Did you see, by the way, Pietrangelo, they might, there's some injury worries or whatever. They might be doing a little Mark Stone again this season. Did you see that?
Yeah, I heard something of that. I'm
Yeah.
not exactly sure what's going on, but I'll tell you this, man.
Yeah.
I really do not think that there is a better front office
Oh, I
in the
agree.
league right now than the Knights. I mean,
Yeah.
look what they've done since they've come out here. They've been, Stanley Cup contenders
Mhm.
since day one. Literally
Yeah.
since day one. We've had one season where we missed the playoffs. But I really have faith in that front office that they're going to pull off something big, something crazy. And I know people they hate that. We probably are one of the most
Mhm.
hated teams in the league,
Mhm.
just for what the front office does. But it's all about winning, and these guys, and that's what pretty much every professional sport should be about. It's about winning. So do whatever you have to do, and I truly believe in the Knights front office that we're going to get something done this offseason.
Well, I like them because they take big swings. Talking about Petrangelo, that was a big swing. The whole thing with,
Yeah,
all the trading Marc-Andre Fleury, like those were not popular moves, but they'll do whatever it
yeah,
takes to win. So I respect that as a franchise. And I've been to games. I love the team out there. It's fun to watch. I think maybe a backup goaltender would be good just to get a little bit more stability with Aiden Hill. I like Hill. He's from here, BC, where I live, but
yeah.
I think they need if you could get someone just to, support him a little bit more, I think would be good. Cause I do think that was one of the issues in the Oilers series. Before we go though, quickly, who's winning the cup? I'm going Panthers. I think they get it done.
Yeah, man, I think the Panthers too. They're
Yeah.
just so good right now. I mean, 3 years in a row, and I just feel like they've just found their groove, man, and they're the ultimate team. I never like to root for anybody in our division. As far as Edmonton, I think McDavid. It'd be cool to see McDavid get a title just because he's arguably the best player in the league,
Oh
and
yeah. Yeah.
I always root for guys that are really good at what they do to be able to achieve a championship. But it's so hard to root for either one. I'm not, but the Panthers, I think they're going to get it done.
Yeah, I do too. And I'm a little biased. Canucks fans, we can't cheer for the Oilers. I know there's this
I know.
idea out there that if you're, Canadian, you have to cheer for the Canadian team. There's some people like that. If it was someone different, maybe a different story, but I just can't cheer for the Oilers. I don't know what it is. So it's just one of those things. But
Yeah, and,
I
and
have
I
a lot of
can't, I
respect for
can't,
McDavid though. Yeah.
I can't cheer for any Canadian team right now because they just keep booing our anthem.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah. Listen, I'm not. I don't take part in that. So
we got to get off that.
yeah, exactly. I
Let's get
agree.
off
I
the
agree.
anthem booing, and then
Yeah,
we'll go from there.
I agree. Okay, John, you're the best. Thanks so much. Safe travels. Anything you want to mention before we get out of here? I'll give you the last word.
Now, just make sure to tune into the UFC Azerbaijan fight night. Khalil Roundtree, Nazim Sadikov. Those guys are going to go out there, and it's going to be fireworks in those fights. So expect big things and some performance of the Knights there.